So you want to start writing, but something is stopping you. Either you can't find the time, your ideas feel a bit half-baked, or you just end up staring at a blank page for ages when you do get to writing. What's up with that? What is it that serves as a barrier between us and our ambitions, and how can we get past it? The answer, naturally, is that it depends. I could give you the usual spiel about just doing it or whatever, but the reality is that for every reason why people struggle with writing, there is a root cause. To properly heal the wound, we must first examine it, rather than slap a band-aid on it and call it a day. In this video, I'll help you get to the bottom of the issue, uncover what it is specifically that blocks you from putting words on a page, and guide you onto a path that allows you to overcome that challenge. If you're new here, then hi, I'm Silver, and I'm really hoping that by imparting my knowledge, I can spare you some of the mistakes that I myself had made. Here goes. To understand what breaks a writer, we first need to dissect what makes one. I'd argue that there are three qualities that, when brought together, make up the definition. First is a boundless imagination and the wish to exist in a perpetual state of learning. We have to be curious. We have to be willing to broaden our horizons. Art is ever-changing, and as a conduit for it, you have to be too. There can be no imagination if you spend your whole life within the same four walls. The least you can do is try to look out the window. Second is discipline and dedication. Regardless of how good you get at it, writing is hard, and in the short term, not very rewarding. It takes time for your creation to become something worth sharing or even enjoying, and you have to be willing to endure that limbo of hard work and little reward. Third, and most interesting, is the near crippling self-doubt. How could that possibly be a good thing, you ask? Or worse, a necessary one? You see, it's remarkably difficult to get quality feedback on your writing, especially early on. So us writers evolve into our own worst critics. It's an incredibly useful position to be in, but there are risks attached. Note how I said near crippling. It's very easy to let our doubts overwhelm us as we stare at a blank page for hours, not knowing what we could possibly write that would be good enough. With these three qualities in mind, we can now assess which one we're missing and how to remedy that. The most common difficulty, I believe, is point number 3, as I suspect is the case with the comment that prompted this behemoth of a rant. Stormshade has little trouble with world building or plotting, but they still struggle with putting words on a paper and starting the dubiously enjoyable process of writing. I might be wrong, of course, but to me it looks like a textbook case of self-doubt growing beyond the amount that is healthy, omitting the near and the near crippling I'd previously attached to it. People who fall into this pit are creative and motivated, and they still find themselves unable to write, or worse, writing something only to delete it again and again and again. If hell is personalized, that is what mine looks like. If it sounds a lot like your predicament, don't lose hope. Like with any art, there will always be a disparity between the idea in your head and what you create in practice. Always! And to move on from the anxiety clutching at our throat of the mere implication that we might write something flawed, we must let our perfectionism go. First drafts exist for a reason. They exist to be flawed. It's okay if your work isn't up to par with what you want it to be. It's fine. It's okay if you can't write as often as you'd like to. If you manage to write a single sentence today, it's still better than not writing at all, and it's still progress. It's easier to steer a moving ship than one sitting in the docks. I promise, correcting course once you have something on the page would be a league easier than writing that first line, that first paragraph, that first page. So if this is what's hindering you, I beg you, pause this video right now and go add a single line to your manuscript or your outline. Got it? Great. If you're struggling with number 2, meaning you don't yet have the self-discipline to get yourself to write, I'll happily quote James Clear's Atomic Habits. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Basically, you don't need to poof self-discipline into existence. Every decision you make to either live according to your ideals or do the opposite is the vote cast, your course slightly altered. Try to make as many good decisions as you can. Seek to improve rather than reach a certain milestone. And eventually, you'll acquire whatever self-discipline you need to achieve your goals. A practical way to approach this is to set a 5-minute timer and just write. If your page is still blank by the end of it, that's fine. You still dedicated 5 minutes to writing. You made progress. You cast your vote. Make the timer longer next time. But don't be discouraged if you still end up with just one paragraph or a single line. You dedicated a block of time to your craft, and that's progress. Brick by boring brick, you will build your self-discipline. I find that number one, imagination and curiosity, is less likely to be the barrier that blocks us from writing. If you lack freedom in your imagination, you need to explore the world around you through books, travel, and conversation. Go into every situation you face with a deliberate intention to learn from it, and eventually you'll grow to see things that you would have been completely blind to before. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I passed out in a classroom once after donating blood. It's a really fun story actually, and I'll be happy to tell it some other time, but I very vividly remember my first thought when I came to. Now I know how to write loss of consciousness. You see, I had conditioned myself to look underneath the underneath of every predicament I find myself in, creating an artificial sort of curiosity. You could do the same, and you don't even have to pass out for it. Just go into situations deliberately, purposefully, with your eyes wide open and your attention dedicated to the world around you. So how can you go about expanding your imagination? I'd recommend reading, especially in genres you don't usually enjoy, with the explicit purpose of learning from the experience. You don't have to be a fan of horror to appreciate how such novels are paced. You could hate high fantasy and still admire how seamlessly world building can be weaved into a story. You could even reread your favorite books but focus on analyzing them this time. Approach them as a writer rather than a reader, and find where you would have done things differently, for better or for worse, and learn why. Be purposeful, and eventually you'll master this method. If my list of potential hurdles somehow missed what is ailing you specifically, please let me know. I'd be happy to adjust my definition of a writer, and happier still to come up with advice that would be useful for you. The comment that inspired this video came in response to my invitations for writers to hit me up and ask questions about writing. General ones like this, or ones dealing with specific issues you have in your manuscript. I was happy to answer Stormshade's question, and I'll be just as happy to answer yours. You can find me under the same name in all of these platforms, including this one. Either comment your question or make a video and tag me in it, and I'll definitely share whatever insights I have regarding your situation. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that some of these tips can help you get started on your work. I'm holding my fingers crossed for you. That's it for this one. Have a great day and happy writing!